7 class action lawsuits have been filed this week in 3 different states, all of them in regards to allegations of wage theft of workers by the McDonald's Corporation. 2 suits have been filed in Michigan, 1 suit has been filed in New York, and 4 have been filed in California so far, and all of them name the McDonald's Corporation itself as a violator in the case, and 5 of them also name franchisees who own and actually run the licensed McDonald's locations. As some of you may know, 90% of all McDonald's locations are actually run and operated by franchise owners. So this actually usually shields the corporation itself from a lot of criticism and blame for the way each shop is usually run and managed. However, the computer system that is used to track and store labor costs for the company has been installed and monitored by the corporation itself. So, and this system is put in place to put extra stress on keeping labor costs as low as they possibly can get. And managers are put under a lot of pressure to keep labor costs low. And one of the attorneys on the side of the workers in Michigan told reporters that, for instance, in Michigan, in order to keep, as soon as labor costs reach a certain percentage, pressure is placed on the franchisees to take measures in reducing labor costs, such as making workers clock out and then clock in again later. And in Michigan, about 1,500 people who have experienced this type of treatment are eligible now to join the 2 lawsuits being placed in Michigan. In New York, stores are getting in trouble for requiring their workers to pay for their uniforms and also pay for the required professional laundering each week, which is taken out of their paycheck. These expenses drive down the employee pay below the standard minimum wage, and it also violates New York state regulations, which require companies to reimburse workers for required laundering expenses. So let me throw it over to you guys. What are your initial reactions to this story?
Well, I mean, for me, the thing that strikes out at me the most is kind of forcing the workers to pay for their own uniforms. This is essentially going back to like when the slave owners forced the slaves to kind of work off and pay for the whips that they would then be whipped with. It's just ludicrous. It'd be like kind of in modern days, kind of all secretaries, working in offices being forced to, bring their own pencils or pens and computers to work. It's like, no, you get provided with those. It's just common sense. And like one of the quotes in the article, and one of the guys who's part of this lawsuit is saying, like, I thought working for a well-known company such as McDonald's that, they wouldn't be breaking laws or anything. And it's like, they're a multinational corporation. Of course they're going to be breaking laws and trying to make as much money out of you as possible. I mean, maybe you didn't expect them to be targeting their workers in this way. Maybe they're being kind of unscrupulous in their, tax evasion and stuff. But, this is to be expected from these corporations. And I think it's the good thing that's been brought to light.
Well, Stephen, this is what happens. I mean, these multinational corporations, you're right. They're going to squeeze everything. And who do they squeeze it from? Squeeze it from the workers. They're just taking and taking and taking and taking as much as they can, and then taking from the taxpayer when these workers have to go on public assistance programs. It's grotesque. Absolutely grotesque.
Right. Currently, even if they get paid their full minimum wage pay, if they even work 40 hours a week and work a full-time job, they still don't have enough to live on. They still have to subsist on public assistance programs.
Well, I mean, the thing is, well, like it says in the article that with these workers being forced to pay for their own, and of course, working at McDonald's, it's not the most glamorous job. You're going to have, kind of oil and stuff kind of splashed all over you. So the kind of laundry bills are going to be fairly substantial as well compared to other jobs. Is that kind of when you factor in those costs, the article says that kind of decreases their minimum kind of their pay per hour, so it goes below the national minimum wage when you factor in those costs. So they're not even making minimum wage, and then this is where kind of those on the right wing will say they're lazy, like you should be working 2 or 3 jobs, and it's like, well, even if they are working 2 or 3 jobs, they're not getting paid minimum wage at these jobs, and they're still having to seek out assistance from the government.
Oh, and then there's that argument about the dignity of work. What kind of dignity are they being shown at these sorts of jobs too? I mean, these low wage jobs that make you. I mean, look, I've worked in manufacturing before, and we didn't pay for that cost. At least it wasn't that much. We weren't making minimum wage. We were making a decent amount of pay at that job. But I mean, these jobs are minimum wage jobs. And
Right.
now to get them to pay all this stuff, just like you guys said, they're making less than minimum wage. And then on top of that, we're calling them lazy because now they have to rely on government assistance, government handouts. So now we're equating them to that surfer dude pretty much when they work and they get everything extracted from them.
And it's so sad, and there's that argument that they don't deserve higher wages and they don't deserve a living wage that takes them out of poverty because they're menial jobs, because they're not important enough to society. But
You're paid what you're worth. But
right.
Sean, you've been wanting to jump in, so I'm gonna let you do that.
Yeah. So when I first saw the story, I wanted to figure out what the angle of the lawsuit was, because I can understand suing the franchise owners suing corporate, or the employees suing the franchise owners, but like the whole point of the franchise owners is to be that middle person. But the real thing that gets you is the machine that they put in, that they installed to keep track of their wages and all that, and then the managers are forcing them to basically not clock in and get paid for hours that they earn their money from. Like, that is among the most egregious. Second, most egregious isn't them necessarily having to pay for their uniforms, because I've worked in places where I had to buy like special shoes or a certain pair of pants or whatever. But the fact that you have to do your laundry at the McDonald's laundry shop because you can't do it right, and they're going to remove that cost from your paycheck, like, to me that's super ridiculous. Like, either I'm able to do my own laundry, or you do it at your own cost if it's like such a health risk for me to use my own detergent or whatever justification. But you can't just like say, this is your wage, right? And this is the legal minimum wage, agree or disagree with it, but I'm gonna deduct this, and this, because it's like when you work at a place and the only place you could spend your money is in the company store. Like, to me, it's more similar to that kind of scam. So I think I hope they win. I don't know. I feel like this is gonna turn into the franchise owners suing the corporate because they're blaming the machines. So I feel like this will spawn another lawsuit, and I hope McDonald's pays for it, because that's super shady. You're making them pay for laundry and not get paid their wage. Like, if you work an hour, then you should be paid for that hour. It's pretty simple.
And take into consideration that the McDonald's CEOs just basically tripled their salary, and but they're still trying to cut the already minuscule wages that they're giving their workers, and they're never ever willing to. Trickle down doesn't happen. It just plain doesn't happen. They can triple their wages, but they're still going to screw their own employees over at every chance that they get. And I heard someone make a good point one time that, you call these workers lazy, but if every single person in the country had a college education, we would still need people to run the restaurants and bring us our food and work the cash registers and, be at the grocery stores bagging our food. So how can we really call these people lazy, these people that are willing to invest 40 hours of their lives every week in order to get paid scraps? I think that anyone who's willing to spend that amount of time should be paid what they're worth, and that is what they're worth is a decent living wage.
Look, anybody who works, a full time and 40 hours a week should be able to afford to live without government assistance. I think we all agree on that. And of course, the way that the corporations would try to get around that is to cut everybody's hours, which is like super fucking shady and just horrible. But I want to throw out a question to everybody and just kind of ask you guys how good of an odd do you think that they'll win this lawsuit? And do you think that this will affect any sort of change in McDonald's practices, or is it just going to be a slap in the wrist?
So I just want to point out, like, right before I answer that question, that this isn't a minimum wage story per se. They're not being paid for, it's literally wage theft. They're being made to work, and the owners or the franchise owners are rigging the books so that they can pay them less. So it's kind of a different case. As far as if they'll win, I think it depends on the states. New York is a huge trial lawyer state, so they have a better chance of winning just by virtue of that in New York. California, the same. Michigan, I'm not sure. Like, so it depends on the states of if they'll win and how much they'll win, and obviously how solid of a case they got. And if this computer system is as advanced at tracking the wages of the employees as the article led me to believe, then that's basically a lot of the evidence that you'll need. Like, it's ironically in the computer that was used to screw them over.
Good point.
I imagine that they probably will win, and it won't, like, it will change and they'll get paid and the situation will be fixed. And this is working on the assumption that at least some of the media picks this up. Mainstream media probably won't pick this up, but if it's circulated a bit on the internet and picks up a bit of steam, then they'll probably end up winning. McDonald's won't receive any huge fine whatsoever. It'll be absolute pittance to them.
Hey, if you enjoyed this clip, make sure to like and leave a comment below, or even share. Sharing is caring. If you want to see more TYT Nation videos, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TYT Nation. Thank you for watching.